Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Agri-Investment Corporation's Agricultural Export webinar under the theme Exports in a Global Market. Breaking the barriers, your success is our success. The objectives of our webinar are to provide a platform for learning and sharing about exporting Jamaican produce, to allow farmers or investors to learn more about the exporting process, to provide a platform for learning about the export opportunities available for Jamaican produce, and also to learn about investors' financing for their agribusiness for exporting. The webinar will be conducted in a presentation style format and will be streamed live on our YouTube channel. Each presenter will get a maximum of 15 minutes to present. After all the presentations have been done, there will be a question and answer segment. Persons will be allowed to pose their questions within a specified time frame. Questions or queries may also be sent in the chat, for which responses will be provided. We will also provide responses via email for questions that are not answered during the question and answer segment. To start off, our webinar promises to be very informative and engaging. So now we will have the opening remarks from our acting CEO of Agri-Investment Corporation, Mr. Owen Scarlett. Welcome, Mr. Scarlett.
I want to say my opening remarks. Good morning. My name is Owen Scarlett. I'm the Chief Executive Officer acting Agro-Investment Corporation. And I want to say to moderator Miss Alicia Brown-Forbes, Miss Cherie Carr, the Senior Counseling Officer acting Jamaica Jump-Up Corporation, Mr. Damian Rowe, Plan Quarantine, SPS Inquiry Point Officer, Plan Quarantine, Produce, Mrs. Patricia Atkinson, Customs Supervisor, Jamaica Custom Agency, and Ms. Shanique Q. Edwards, Senior Sales Promotion Officer, Jamaica Promotion Corporation, and Mr. Lawrence White, Business Development Manager, People's Cooperative Credit Union. The hardworking team at Agro-Investment Corporation, media practitioner, other participants, especially those in the diaspora, our investors join our Microsoft team, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The pleasure is indeed to welcome all of you to the Agro-Investment Corporation Agriculture Export webinar under the theme Agri-Export in a Global Market, Breaking the Barrier. Your success is our success. As the country looks to recover from the economic fallout arising from the global COVID pandemic, the importance of agriculture export has been significantly reaffirmed as a strategy for economic growth and development. Agro-Invest has sought to champion the orientation of agriculture towards crop diversification and export expansion, especially through our agri-parks and production zone programs. We do this by securing agricultural lands and putting them into production for the advancement of Jamaican economy. There are plans in the pipeline to establish more agri-parks and production zones to produce crops such as yellow yam, dasheen, sweet potato, Scotch bonnet pepper, ackee, breadfruit, and other more. Through the development of agricultural land and the agri-parks and production zone, the industry is poised to contribute further to exports to produce crops that are in high demand in the diaspora. With this aim in mind, the corporation wants to connect farmers/investors, not just at our agri-parks, but across the island to our key partners that will provide the necessary information and the requirement and inspection process for the exporting, the investment opportunities that exist for exporters, sources of capital for anyone interested in investing in exporting, as well as providing networking opportunities while encouraging dialogue and creating linkage among our stakeholders. We firmly believe that exporters and agro-processors represent key supply chain players as they require raw material for their operation, and they play a vital role in promoting the building of brand Jamaica through their interaction with stakeholders in overseas market. I am happy to share with you that our activities at Agro-Invest are aligned with this premise of building brand Jamaica. Today, the webinar offers the opportunity to connect with JAMPRO, Plan Quarantine, Jamaica Custom, and the NPC Bank, who will tell you how to get your product export ready, how to finance your agriculture export business, and the available opportunity in that market. Agro-Invest will continue to play our part, promoting region-wide network for expanding production and distribution of Jamaica produce across the globe, collating, reviewing, and disseminating a set of bankable products that would interest investors, matching agribusiness entrepreneurs, reaching in the network with potential investors to collaborate, and new opportunity in agribusiness sector, facilitating business, asset matching through one-on-one dialogue, and finally extract your interest today from all the speakers' presentation and are certain who is ready to move on to the next step. In closing, I want to encourage all our participants to embrace the information shared today and use it to evaluate the opportunity presented to guide towards greater success in agribusiness. Thank you for attending and participating. Back over to our moderator, Alison Brown Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. So at this time, we will now welcome our first presenter, Ms. Cherie Scar. She's from JAMPRO, and her presentation will be on the requirements to become an exporter of agricultural produce or products. Welcome, Ms. Scar.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me, Agro-Invest. My presentation today will be focused on the exporter registration process for agricultural exports. Sorry, I think it's on now. Yes. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm not sure if I have the option here, Miss Brown, to share.
Going to more.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. It's giving me the access.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I'm hopeful everyone can see the screen.
We
Let me
can.
know. Yes? Great.
Yes.
All right, so we can go ahead and just get right into it. So I'm going to be speaking for today. We're going to be looking at an overview of exporter registration. Then we're going to move into the registration exemptions, requirements prior to registration, outline of the exporter registration process, post-registration, and renewals. So, the exporter registration process is a legal requirement for all individuals or entities exporting on a commercial basis. Jamaica Promotions Corporation has responsibility for the exporter registration process. So, registration is required only for individuals or businesses exporting goods on a commercial basis to incur revenue. Registration is done online via the Export JA Asikuda platform. And it's also important to know that we do not issue a license as we're not a regulatory body. However, what we do is give authorization to export through the approval of registrations. So now we're going to move into the registration exemption. So there are some circumstances in which an exporter is exempted or is not required to register. So where you have shipments classified as personal effects or non-commercial items which will not result in revenue generation. So temporary use and are to be subsequently re-exported. So examples would be items for a trade show or cars for a racing event. And we're going to move on to the next one, goods being exported for subsequent re-importation. So for this one, you'd have goods that are, an example would be goods returned to the manufacturer for repairs. You also have goods for which duty was paid and the items subsequently re-exported. And also custom brokers and freight forwarders and other intermediaries shipping products on behalf of local clients on a commercial basis. So custom brokers and freight forwarders no longer need to be registered with JAMPRO unless they are the owners of the products and or are exporting on behalf of an overseas client. So that would mean the local clients would need to have their own registration with JAMPRO, right? And the final exemption, SEZ entities. So export shipments executed by entities operating in the special economic zone are subject to the relevant provisions under the SEZ Act. So now we're going to move into the requirements prior to registration. So we're moving into the requirements prior to registration. I think someone's unmuted.
All right. I'm gonna check in on you here.
Can we all mute?
Yeah, 1 second, don't move.
All right. So sorry. So the requirements prior to registration. So before attempting registration, it is important to have the following in place, right? So you need to ensure that you have an export market or your buyer for your products ready. So it's strongly advised that you ensure this is in place. In the event that you do not have a buyer, our agribusiness team would be happy to assist with connecting you to potential buyers. However, in order to do so, we need to know how ready you are for the export market. So you'll be required to submit a profile of your business and include information relating to your production capacity. And we'll be asking some specific questions such as, is your company a manufacturer or a grower or a consolidator, middleman? Does your company have export experience? Are there special markets of interest? And for you to specify those, is your farm, the farms from which you acquire your produce RADA registered? Have you acquired local or global certifications, such as the certification of agricultural produce, hazard analytical control point, or the global gap certification? What is your production capacity in terms of the acreage of your land, number of farmers in your network, supply chain, factory, business production capacity? What quantities of products are available for export and with what frequency of supply? So in addition to those questions, we also will require that you complete our export readiness checklist online. So that a link to that could be, we can provide a link to that upon request. So after you have completed the readiness checklist, a response will be provided with you'll be provided with a relevant response at the end of that assessment. And this will just basically allow us to get a better understanding of your readiness for the export market and how it is that we can support. So another requirement prior to registration would be your exporter identification. So the exporter registration can be done on an individual basis or in the name of a business or company. So when registering on an individual basis, you're required to provide a proof of Jamaican identification, whether that's your Jamaican national ID, your Jamaican passport, or your Jamaican driver's license. And when registering in the name of a business or company, you're required to provide your certificate of incorporation or certificate of business registration from the company's office of Jamaica. And this is just a little example I've placed here for you to see. That's the document that we usually look for on the registration platform. So it is important to note that these documents should be saved in PDF format for upload to the online system. Another requirement would be your plant quarantine letter. This is very important, especially for agricultural exporters. So you are required to upload a letter from the plant quarantine division of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries stating that your packing house facility for the fresh produce has been inspected and certified. So when exporting agricultural fresh produce, you must have a certified packing house facility. So that must be the first thing that you have in place because you will definitely need that in order to get the plant quarantine letter, and it is necessary for our registration process. So to acquire the use of a facility, you may construct your own facility or obtain permission for use of a certified facility. So when constructing your facility, you need to consult with the plant quarantine division concerning the specifications of how it should be structured. The certified facility, is required to write the plant quarantine division. So if it is that you're obtaining permission for use of a certified facility, right? So that means someone else already has this established facility and it's been certified by plant quarantine already, and you would like to use that facility. So what will happen is that you'd have to the certified facility. Yes, so sorry.
Just a second. Okay, realize that your slides weren't changing, but you just changed it. So okay, you can continue.
Oh no, my apologies. Everyone's seeing where I'm at now. I'm at obtaining permission for use of a certified facility. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It was changing on my end. Apologies. All right. So I was mentioning that when if it is that you're going to be using another person's facility, another entity's facility, that facility is required to write the plant quarantine division advising of use of their packing facility by the exporter. So the plant quarantine division will issue an approval letter once all requirements are met. And this letter, as mentioned earlier, should be uploaded to the online system. And you need to ensure that that document is in PDF format. Another requirement would be a license from the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority. So you are required to upload a license from JACRA to export the following regulated agricultural commodities. So products such as cocoa, coffee, coconut, and the spices, which include nutmeg, pimento, ginger, and turmeric, and any other byproduct from these commodities. Another license that you'd need to upload in the event that you're going to be exporting the buds or flowers and seeds of the cannabis sativa plant. So you'll be required to upload a license from the Cannabis Licensing Authority. And of course, you'll need to consult with the plant quarantine division as well. All right, so we're out. So those are the requirements. So I'd strongly advise that you ensure all those are in place before attempting to complete the registration. So we're now going to move into the outline of the exporter registration process. So the exporter registration is done online via the EXPORT.JA/Asecuda platform, as mentioned earlier. We do have YouTube videos outlining the step-by-step exporter registration process, and they are accessible on our website at dobusinessjamaica.com. The link to the videos can also be sent to you via email upon request. You are required to download the Java software on your computer, as it will allow you access to Asecuda World. The initial cost of registration is, sorry, there's a point.
We're not seeing the slide.
Hello? Is everyone able to hear me? Are you able to see the slides as well?
We can hear you, but we can't see the slides.
Oh, no, I don't know what's happening. Let me stop presenting and try again. Give me access to share once more. Ms. Brown? Oh, I'm seeing it now. Let me try once again. Are you able to see it now?
No, still not coming
Still
up.
nothing? Huh. Let me try again. How about now? Are you seeing it now?
No, still, we're not seeing it.
Still not there. Let me try once again. Still nothing? Nothing at all?
No, nothing still.
Oh. Hmm. I try it again. Nothing still?
No, nothing still.
What's happening? It's not showing at all. Hmm. Okay, is it? Oh, yes. Maybe you can share from your end. Yeah, that's the slide I'm on. Is everyone able to see the slide?
I'm
Yeah, we're
seeing
seeing that now.
Okay,
But you
great.
probably missed a couple before that.
Oh no.
She was just right here. She was just right here talking about the
I
outline
get,
of exporter registration process.
I get that, but from the form that she had said that she was showing us an example of that, and I even seen the marijuana leaf there. I didn't see any of those.
Okay, this
Oh, you
form?
didn't.
That form,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, just to backtrack then, this would be an example of the plant quarantine letter that we're looking for to be uploaded to the online system. What was there anything that was missing? The slides following that one you said?
No,
You weren't
it's
able to
okay.
see?
No, I'm just saying that I wasn't seeing, or I'm assuming the team wasn't seeing everything from there. But
Oh,
might
from
I
there.
suggest, in order to not delay the meeting, if the
Mm-hmm.
presentation could be shared or the direction to where we can get the information will be fine for me. I'm just saying I wasn't seeing that.
Okay. Right.
Sure.
So the information can be shared after.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. So I will just continue from the slide that I left off from then. So we can do that. I'm at the outline of the exporter registration process. So I was mentioning that the initial cost of registration is 3,500 Jamaican dollars, and this covers your 1 year registration. The annual cost thereafter is 3,000 Jamaican dollars for renewal, which must be paid on or before the expiry date of your registration. There are 3 steps to completing the exporter registration process. That is, you to create a user account, completing the online registration form, and payment. So we're just going to go through those quickly. So the first step, create a user account. In order to access Asikuda World, you must create a user account. So once you have gone through the process of creating your account, you will be sent your login credentials via email from a Jamaica Customs Agency representative. So when creating your user account, you will need to have the following information ready to enter in the required sections, right? So that would be an email address that is checked regularly. Your individual TRN must be 13 digits, or if you're registering as a business, your business TRN, 13 digits. Other general information such as name, numbers, business name, right? When completing the online registration form, so that's slide 29. So right, no, before that slide. Yes. So once you have received your login credentials, you will then be able to log into Asikuda World to complete the registration form, right? So for this step, you're required to fill out the registration form with all the relevant information to include general information. That's 2 slides down from that, I think, from that one. Right, so that's the general information. Name, which includes your name, contact person, and position, the production address, but in your case, that would be the packing house facility address, the products to be exported along with their corresponding tariff HS codes. You're required to upload your scanned documents. That would be your proof of identification or your business certification, your plant quarantine letter, or your JACRA or cannabis licenses if necessary. And of course, there's a section for you to input your export markets, right? So this is a section that will have drop downs that will have the different countries to choose. We're moving on to the payment. So once you have completed the registration form, you may proceed to submit. Note that the application status will then be changed to pending for payment, at which stage the payment should be made. So payment should be made online using a debit or credit card. But should you have any issues paying online, you may reach out to us for an alternative payment option. So after you have submitted your application and made payment, the application will be subject to review by a JAMPA representative who, after ensuring the application has been completed correctly, will approve. So upon approval, so we're at post-registration. So upon approval of your exporter registration, you will receive a confirmation email or letter, which will outline your exporter registration reference number and the registration expiry date. So this letter will become your proof of exporter registration for all related transactions. So once you're ready to send off your shipment, you'll be required to complete the customs declaration form using your new exporter registration reference number. And finally, I'm going to briefly touch on the renewals. So exporter registration is renewed annually at a cost of 3,000 Jamaican dollars, as mentioned earlier. The exporter registration renewal must be done using the Export JA Asecuda platform. All expired documents must be updated during this process. For example, your plant quarantine letters and JACRA licenses, and also for registrations which have been inactive for more than 1 year. The registration fee is 3,000 multiplied by the number of years it has been inactive. We're at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you need any further information or you have any queries, you can feel free to contact us at our contact information at the slide before this one, Ms. Brown. So that is our contact, the Contact Management Center. You can reach us via telephone or via email. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carr. Your presentation was so detailed. Wow. We are so happy that you could have provided us with such extensive information on the requirements. And as I said before, persons who have questions can pose them in the chat, or we will allow a question and answer segment after the presentations have completed. So I know you must have a lot of questions, so we are definitely willing to share the information with you after the webinar. So we will now move on to Mr. Damian Rowe. He's from the Plant Quarantine branch, and he will now speak on the requirements and inspection process to export your produce that you have. So Mr. Rowe, welcome. Good morning again.
Good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Sorry, my mic was ghosted.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here to present the plant quarantine export requirement and our inspection process. Today I have Mr. Fitzroy White, my colleague. He's here with me, and he will join me in the question and answer section. I don't have the privilege to share my presentation.
Not hearing Mr. Rowe.
Yeah, because I'm waiting for the shared presentation option. It's presently ghosted on my side, so I cannot upload the presentation.
Okay, just a second. We're gonna start out something.
No problem.
Mr. Rowe, can you try to see if you can share your presentation again?
Region is something called region,
Okay,
we say
so
plus region. So me
let me try.
never
Just waiting for it to come up. Yes. Are you seeing the slide on your side?
Yes, we are. So you're good to go now.
Right, I hope I'll be able to present clearly because it's really small on my side. All right, so good
Can
morning
you
again,
use
everyone.
slide? You can use the slideshow.
I was trying that option yesterday. It wasn't working too well.
Okay, all right, you can go ahead.
Yeah. All right, I'll just try with this and see how it works. If anything, I'll try another option. All right, so this morning I'll be speaking to the export requirement and the inspection process, as I mentioned earlier. So, just to inform you that the plant quarantine produce inspection branch, we deal specifically with plants and plant product. And our presentation this morning will look at a brief introduction into plant quarantine, the export requirement process and the inspection process. Right. So as I mentioned earlier, plant quarantine is the regulatory body for plant and plant products and regulated articles such as pallets and used car, tractors, heavy-duty tractors, soil, those type of regulated articles that have a significant phytosanitary risk to the country. We are regulators of those things as well. The mandate of the plant quarantine, we are the body that prevent the introduction of exotic pests in the country. So anytime there's an introduction of a new species of pests, we're the body that will be called to action the emergency action and to get rid of that pest out of the country before it is fully established. We also ensure the highest quality produce are exported and imported in the country. And of course, we do have a role to play in the whole business of trade facilitation. We operate under two general legislation, the Plant Quarantine Act of 1993, and we do have several regulations underneath that. And our export, the act that specifically deal with export is the Agriculture Produce Act of 1926 and the several regulations that falls under that act. The plant quarantine body, we are really classified as an NPPO within the Jamaican space and within the international region. What that means, we're the plant protection organization of the country, and we are recognized to maintain the plant health within the Jamaican sphere. We work with bodies just a custom body. We work with research and development, RADA. Several government agencies are aligned with helping us plant quarantine to carry out the mandate. And of course, we have the business of import and the business of export to execute under our portfolio. As I mentioned earlier, the different agencies include RADA and R&D, Research and Development, are the two main agencies that help to form the triangle in the whole nexus of the plant protection. And of course, there are bodies like forestry, academia, various government division that plays a key role or a coordinating role. We're also recognizing the international space under the WTO and the Three Sisters. We fall directly under the International Plant Protection Convention, that's the IPPC, and we do have responsibilities under Codex Alimentarius that deals specifically with food safety our sister agency, the vet services division, would fall under the OIC, sorry. Under the Plant Protection Convention, there are about 184 countries that are either signatory bodies or acceding members. Plant Quarantine would be an acceding members because we weren't there when this body was formed in the early stage to be a signatory body. So we're an acceding member to the IPPC, nonetheless we're a member. And under the IPPC, there are various standards that we use that govern export and govern dual import process in this country. Why is plant quarantine important? It is important because we have to protect the country. We have an obligation to protect our country, and we have an obligation to ensure the highest quality pest-free products are exported. Why we need to protect our country? Just look at the fact that you have heard in the news, okay, give me a second. Thank you. You would have heard in the media space the dreaded frostipod rot disease that cost the country over $100 million every year to control. And just before frostipod is the most expensive disease that Jamaica has ever introduced. But we would have had other diseases that are pests that enters the country, like the lime swallowtail butterfly, the citrus greening, the pink hibiscus mealbug. Remember the days of the pink hibiscus mealbug very early in the plant quarantine, in the 2000s. These are serious pests that cause significant problem to agriculture. We do not want these pests here, and we try our best to get rid of them ourselves. Right? They can cause significant economic loss. You would have seen recently, I think there was some alarm with corn, the introduction of a new pest affecting corn. And we heard about the pest that was affecting cucurbits like watermelon and so forth in the St. Elizabeth space. Of course, the impact of pests is never something that is beneficial to farmer because it really costs money and it threatens food security. So the high production cost that is involved with trying to grow your crop, trying to buy fertilizer, trying to buy pesticide to contain a pest is always high. And the economic side of it is so compounded because once we have introduced a pest, this is now going to impact our market access. So if we're trying to export produce to another country that doesn't have the pest, so if, for example, we ever get Mediterranean fruit fly, God forbid that we get that pest. But if that pest was to introduce in Jamaica, immediately our export to the United States would have to cease, would shut down immediately. Every item that we export to the United States would shut down. And that will, of course, affect our food security, our livelihood, and our families. So that's why the business of plant quarantine is very serious, and it must be taken seriously at all times. I'll move directly into the export requirement and what it requires for a business person or businessman or a company to go into the business of export. The export process, a person that wishes to export, you can either do so by using a packing facility of another exporter, a company that already have a packing facility. That company would have to, I think my presentation was kicked off. Not sure what happened. Are you still seeing my slides?
No, we're not.
Yeah, it was kicked off. Not sure what is happening in the background. I will try to upload again. Just give me a little. Bear with me.
I'm not seeing it.
It has to
Open
start
share
on.
tree. What is this open share?
It's loading. Loading. All right, so resume. To get back to the point where I was. This is where I was, right? You're seeing the slides?
Yes, we're seeing the slides now.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I was on the point that you use another person's packing facility. It's the most easy and convenient way to get to export plant and plant product. Facility owner will provide you with a letter saying that they grant permission for you to export. And once we do our investigation and find it feasible, we'll provide a letter that you will take to JAMPRO. JAMPRO spoke about the whole process in the previous presentation. So you will take that letter to JAMPRO and they will do their registration as well for you to start your export process. The other option is to have your own facility, get a own facility registered, and you can either build one from scratch or you could use a warehouse and retrofit it with the requirements that we have. And our requirements are online. Go to the plant quarantine page on the Ministry of Agriculture website. And of course, you will find our requirements there. And it is very detailed. It gives you examples, gives you pictures, everything that you need to know in the process. And if you still need to get further information, you can contact Plant Quarantine for further consultation as well. So once a person you're registered, you can be registered to do in two categories. One is that you are registered to only do dry processed products. These are like coffee, assorted herbs, and this is like assorted herbs and natural are like new kid on the block for us. We are seeing since COVID a lot of people coming to us trying to export Irish moss and sorosy leaves, moringa, all of these things they want to export overseas. It's now become a real business for people. We definitely try to create that opportunity, that space, so that these traders can enter these markets and get their foreign returns. Of course, the traditional registration process would be that we register you to do the general export items, the yam, the peppers, the mangoes, the callaloo, you name it. And that includes a wet process and the entire schematic process that we have in our export guideline would cover that aspect of it. So the registration process doesn't stop with plant quarantine. As JAMPRO would have detailed that thing for us, they would be involved in the process under other agencies that are involved in the export. And of course, JACRA, new kid on the block, if JACRA have an interest, that exporter will also have to consult JACRA, whether it be that they're trying to export turmeric, ginger, cocoa, coffee, all the list of items that fall directly under the JACRA system, they would have to be registered with that entity. Banana board have some interest to play when you're exporting bananas, so they will play a role as well. And of course, we spoke about, JAMPRO spoke about the CLA process if you're trying to do cannabis for export. Of course, when you come to plant quarantine, we want to see that you have these registration from, we want to see a registration from JAMPRO, we want to see a registration or your JACRA trade, the agreement that you have with JACRA. And of course, your banana board and CLA, whether there are no objection or a full registration with CLA, we want to ensure that you have those pre-requirements before we allow the export process to continue. Market requirements that you may have to contend with is whether you're going, different markets have different requirements. For example, if you're going to the United States, there is a requirement under the pre-clearance process that the item must be fumigated, and they allow certain items to go into that market under the pre-clearance program. So the pre-clearance program is an agreement between Jamaica and the United States for 52 items to enter that market space without the hassle in the market of hassle of being inspected when you enter that United States space. It's smooth and fast passage into the market. Of course, there's the irradiation requirement or the hot water treatment requirement where the mangoes are. It's specific to mangoes, where mangoes have to be treated before it enter the market. And we know the FDA, with concerned food safety, the produce safety rule, and you have to have food safety plan, or whether it be a maximum residue limit, you only can use certain chemicals for certain market. We have also EU regulation that you must contend with, and these regulation of we have to declare that the item that you're going to export is free of certain pests. And of course, there is market. Buyers and sellers will have to contend with the global gap for some markets. They're asking for global gap certification. So those are requirements specific to markets. If we have to look into the packing house, as I said, if you are going to the export business and you want to establish your own packing house facility, then there are some requirements that you must contend with. And under the planned quarantine packing house guidelines, we look at the packing house into specific areas, which that the packing house facility must be separate from dwelling. So it cannot be a facility that you just walk into your facility and then walk directly into your house, or from your house directly into your facility. There must be clear separation. The floor space, we have done some modification to this requirement. We had a 1,000 minimum square feet in the past. Now we have changed that, give it a little more flexibility to all the markets. People who have small amount of item that they want to export. And this, we are saying that you must be able to demonstrate to that you can operate in a smaller space and demonstrate your preventive control, your food safety measures are actually in place. The floor space, we say it must be, the construction of the facility must be of stone structure. We don't want you to build anything from wood. We are looking for a concrete or metal structure, fabricated material, but we do not recommend any wood structure. And the floor space must be safe, concrete, and easy, allow for easy movement into in and out of the facility. Right? Its floor must be steel floated. There must be adequate space for loading, drying, washing, and all of that. And the lighting, proper lighting in your facility, restroom for your workers, lunch area, sick bay, all of these things are very important for you to have. In terms of the facility flow, we want to see that unidirectional flow. We have an area for receiving your goods, you have an area for washing, you have an area for sorting, grading, and your finished and packing, and then your finished product is stored in another area. So we want to see that the ventilation, we're saying let adequate airflow be moving around your business. At least 1/3 of your wall space should be designated to window or airflow, right? Roofing should be of zinc, ceramic tiles. It could be slab roof with proper eaves around it. And of course, we're saying for chemical disposal, we want to see you have a system in place where you can demonstrate that you're not going to be polluting the natural environment. If you have like a charcoal pit or a wastewater treatment system, you'll be satisfying requirements relating to NEPA and of course, public health as well, because they too have concerns with those things. When we look at what roofing design will look like, slab, zinc, and we're talking about ventilation. Here's a picture showing the proper airflow in and out of the facility. We mentioned about lighting. We don't want any naked bulbs. And we mentioned about, we're going to talk about screen protection, which is very important for plant quarantine, that the screens to your facility must be, you must prevent insect from entering, must prevent rodent from entering your facility, because these are actually embarking in food safety and phytosanitary risks to your facility. Drains must be covered, the environment must be clean, and if you have security dogs, they must be properly secured. All right, so foods, proper air to store your chemical, and first aid. We talk about no naked bulb must be covered. We talk about screen, that's showing a little screen of the door passage that is already screened, right? And we mentioned we say that, drying racks, pallets, crates, all of these things must be available in your facility. And we encourage people to use plastic crate. They were gone were the days when we were using steel or metal to do the drying rack facility. We're no longer doing that. And if you have to use drying rack, we said you have to put a plastic metal, that is a lattice that is placed over the drying racks. The produce don't go directly contact with the metal surface. And Mr. Gardner will be here to explain that a little further on in the discussion section. Food hygiene is very important. You must have hand wash station. Once you go to the restroom, you must be able to wash your hands properly. You must be utilizing gloves. All of these things are very important to the operation, right? Food safety is everybody's business. And we're saying that you must have a proper hand wash station in your facility at strategic location that everybody can have access to it. Right? In terms of practicing of packing house, we want you to maintain a clean and pest-free space. We want you to ensure that where you're getting your produce from is reputably a reputable source. You have proper record system in place for your business, and you have proper procedures when you're going to accept goods, rejecting goods, and so forth. There must be a proper system in place, right? We are looking at the fact that when you pack your produce and you have finished produce, there must be an isolated place that you actually store these produce. You can't be having finished produce mixing up with goods that are incoming and going into processing. You cannot have that. Workers must be clean. So people that are working in the unclean area, the washing area, you can't have them move directly into the clean area where you have the grading and the packaging, and that could cause cross-contamination, right? Proper record, proper traceability program, you must have these things in place. Quickly, we're going to look at the inspection process. For us, when we do inspection, is the objective of the inspection process is to ensure that the consignment you're exporting meet the market requirement. So if you're exporting to the United States, there are a set of requirements that we must meet, right? And it could be for a certain regulated quarantine pest or regulated non-quarantine pest. And it could be for even quality that we're checking for. So it's a verification process before we can actually go into certifying your produce, right? And once an exporter comes into the business, we're not going to let you, left you on your own. We offer first-hand guidance in terms of how to pack the produce, what type of pest you need to look for, how you need to look for the pest for each item. And we also help you to protect your finished produce, what type of system you need to have in place for your finished produce, right? So everything must be clean, everything must be organized, just to ensure that you're having a proper system in place that when you ship your goods overseas, you're not having any non-compliance. The inspection for us can be two-phase. It can be a field inspection and a consignment inspection. In terms of field inspection, it is specific to certain crop and certain market. And we're saying that once you want to export with us, for field inspection, you need to make an appointment with us. We come and check your field. For example, callaloo and pepper, you have two main items that we usually go to different fields and check for. We do it for citrus as well. So for example, pepper, we want to look for a certain particular pest. We're coming to check for that pest. And we're also looking for the pest pressure in your field. Is it too high? Do you need to carry out some intervention in terms of remedy, some chemical treatment? You need to boost up on your good agriculture practices. All of these things we'll look for and provide with guidance. In terms of inspection of commodity, we have two facilities in Jamaica, two main facilities, the export complex in Kingston and the export complex in Montego Bay. We do have some outstation, one in Mandeville, Portland, St. Anne, St. Elizabeth, right? And the export premises, we also go to your premises to do inspections. So if you're doing like a sea container and you want us to come to your facility, we do provide you with that service. So we come to your facility and do the checks there, all right? Coming on to wrapping up the inspection process for us, we are doing our document checks, and our document checks is basically against the market requirement, what market they're going and what they ask for. We look at whether it's a permit they give us for us to match against. We have some set guidelines in terms of regulation, like the EU and the UK regulation. We'll be looking at those. We'll be ensuring that the goods that you're saying you're shipping is the goods you're shipping and it's belong to you. We'll select samples from your lot. So if you have 100 boxes of mango, we'll take a sample from that and we'll do an inspection, a physical inspection, to ensure that the shipment is pest-free and of good quality. And then we go through the certification process, right? Some items, as I said, will require a treatment process. There could be a fumigation that is required, or irradiation for certain markets. For England, for US, yam must be fumigated, and they also require fumigation. Hot water treatment or irradiation for mangoes. Once you have completed the plant quarantine process, you will move to customs for final processing, final documentary processing, stamp duties, etc. They will do their collection there. Then you will move to the shipping line. If you're coming to the airport to do an inspection, the airline facilities at the airports. It's like a one-stop shop. So once you come with your goods, you don't leave the compound to go off. The airline is there to take the goods and prepare it for do the security checks and then move into the aircraft and move away. If a sea shipment, we also do loading at the export complex, and from there they would move to the seaport for export. Final slide. The information source for us, you can go to our website, Ministry of Agriculture website, look at the plant quarantine page, and you will find our export requirement. You find packing house guidelines, and of course, there's a manual there for good agricultural practices that will provide you a lot of information. There's a link there as well when we share a presentation, so you can have full access information regarding what we presented today. Thank you, and we await any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. That was a very good presentation. We are so happy that Plant Quarantine was able to come on board and give all of that information as to the requirements and inspection process. We realized that the department Okay, so everyone, Plant Quarantine did an excellent job in presenting their requirements and inspection process for exporting produce or products. It was quite informative, and we realized that the department has a whole network of agencies that they work with, and that they're willing to work with all the investors who want to export. So we ask persons to continue to pose their questions. So if you have questions for Plant Quarantine, pose your questions in the chat and we will respond to your questions after the presentations. So we will now welcome Mrs. Atkinson, Mrs. Patricia Atkinson from Customs. She will now give the requirements for agricultural products as it relates to the Customs Department. Welcome, Mrs. Atkinson.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Rowe and Ms. Carr has said so much already, and the information I will just say from the onset is quite overlapping, because we at Customs perform agency functions on behalf of Plant Quarantine, JAMPRO, and the rest of it. So you will find that the information I'm about to disseminate is pretty similar in many respects to what has gone before. So let me just caution you that you'll be hearing a few of the things again, and I hope that it will serve to consolidate the process and the procedures that entail in the exportation of goods generally, in particular agricultural goods. So I'm going to just, having said that, let me just share my screen so you can see my presentation. Are we seeing? Are we seeing the presentation?
Yes, we're seeing the presentation. You can go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for inviting us at Customs to share with you on this webinar. All right, so the objectives therefore will be to give our hearers an appreciation of the relevant information about the process of, I should say, exporting, forgive that. I did a previous one on importing, on exporting personal and commercial agricultural goods. Also on the information about the process of the commercial. So I'm doing both personal and commercial for your benefit. Okay. As a Jamaica Customs Agency, we have a mandate in that we're mandated by the government of Jamaica and empowered by legislation to execute the equitable collection of revenue, the protection of Jamaica's borders, especially against illicit exports, imports, and to facilitate trade. We execute this task guided by our core values, CAPIT, and I'm going to break that out for you: customer focused, accountable, professional, integrity, and transparency. Those are our core values. Now, where customer focus is concerned, we're improving the processes and procedures to ensure that the customer has the very best experience once entering or exiting our borders. We're accountable in that each employee assumes personal responsibility to achieve the agency's objectives. We are professional in serving our stakeholders with pride and dignity. We show our integrity by acting honestly and impartially in achieving the best outcome for our stakeholders and our country at large. We're transparent in displaying our willingness to accept public scrutiny in the delivery of our service. Now we're going to be looking at, as we go straight into the discussion, documents required for the agricultural export. Now, mandatory forms include the EX1, which is a document for permanent export, the airway bill of the bill of lading. Airway, as Mr. Brown would have said, if you're going through the airport; bill of lading if you're going via vessel. All the requisite invoices, JAMPRO certificates, and a tally sheet. These must be presented to customs. Forms for specific circumstances would include the EUR1, which is a certificate of origin required for goods destined for European countries. The CARICOM certificate for goods with the CARICOM market is also required, because you know that there are certain waivers that we get because we're party to this agreement. The dispatch form or doc receipt of note, this is no longer mandatory for customs, but the port might require it. Phytosanitary certificate, permits or license, and examples were listed before, coming from Plant Quarantine, Ministry of Agriculture, the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority, which was just spoken about as well, and the Bureau of Standards, just to name a few. Okay, for exporting of personal shipments, as I said, I was going to be breaking out personal and commercial. The process always begins with the exporter having an intention And in having the intention, the exporter must apply for the requisite license and permits and required for wherever required for the exportation of his or her goods. Now they can go through the Jamaica single window for trade, which is a J-Swift platform. And of note, this online portal connects exporters and importers, government entities together as they interact within the space to navigate and to determine the license and permits that they require. So the LPCO, that tab is to flag up the license, P for permits, C for certificates and other documents that might be required for the export of their goods. So this JSIF window or platform is pretty user friendly, and all our agencies, most of which are concerning the export, will be found there, and it is easy for you to apply on that platform. I'm sure all of them are not yet on it, but for the most part, significant ones are there, so we can utilize that platform to apply for our LPCOs. So they have to also prepare a tally sheet, and in doing so, it will be used for checks and balances when they come to the port of exit. So the officers will have these tally sheets to use and to examine against the goods presented. They should properly secure, package, or wrap their goods. And of course, they would utilize whatever means to do so based on the determinants of the various bodies, plant quarantine, whatever it is that they require. They should adhere to the requirements. They should also contact a licensed or registered custom broker. Of note, there are registered exporters who are trained to utilize the services of the platform of Asikuda and can prepare their own SAD. So these persons too will have the privilege of utilizing the platform to make up their own SAD for presentation to customs. The broker, the agent, the registered person does the booking confirmation with the preferred airline or vessel of choice. Now, the broker et al., I'm going to be saying et al. Because, of course, you know, I'm speaking of the licensed persons, brokers, whomever else who might want to prepare the SAD. So for the purposes of just being short in addressing the issue, I'm going to be saying broker et al. Submits the ESAD or EX1 utilizing the procedure code 1500, and this is for the personal shipment, attaching and uploading the requisite documents, permits, invoices, and pays the applicable processing fee. Of note, as at April 1st, 2021, it was gazetted that the stamp duties and the CAF on exports not exceeding US 500 would be removed. So they would not have to pay the $3,005. However, if the goods exceed that, then it becomes applicable. It was before mentioned by Mr. Rowe that the one-stop facility at the airport is a one-stop shop wherein all those agents will be have access to the space and will come there to conduct their examinations and so on and do the different checks. Likewise, customs conducts their examination, ensuring that the quotas are not exceeded based on the permits that have been granted, and also that the permits are valid and in good and regular standing. Once satisfied, the declaration is processed and cargo delivered to the carrier of choice. And I placed here, for example, American or Caribbean Airlines for export. Now for commercial shipments, in order to export commercial shipments, an exporter must be registered with JAMPRO. Ms. Carr already outlined all the requirements there. Registration must be done on the Export Jamaica system or ASICUDA. Registration with JAMPO is required for individuals or businesses exporting goods on a commercial basis or to obtain revenue. I'm just outlining here, as I'm sure was flagged before, Goods requiring license or permit prior to approaching JAMPA for registration would be those goods such as agricultural produce. Of course, you'd contact the quarantine division of Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. The veterinary division would also be contacted for meat. I'm just outlining some of the areas that would normally would have exporters requiring the use of different agencies. And for JACRA, of course, the license is only required for goods exceeding 5 kgs. And of course, Mr. Brown would have flagged up the coffee, the cocoa, the coconut, the spices. Cannabis also was spoken about by the Cannabis Licensing Authority. And of course, while these are not agricultural, for all intents and purposes, I thought it necessary to just flag up some of these for the benefit of the hearers, that you can look at them and see where or which agency would be in charge of whatever export that you might be interested in, if it is that you choose to diversify. Just one general information, commercial exports would take a procedure code of 1,000 that is, while the personal export would take the procedure code of 1,500. They both use the EX1s, which are prepared by the licensed broker or the person who is registered to utilize and have their password and so on, and is au fait with using a Secuda. And of course, the document is thereafter, after the requisite payments have been made, it is submitted for customs review. Exporters must note, they must ensure that the JCA export team examines all agricultural exports prior to exit. And once there are no anomalies, the export officer will sign and stamp the tally sheet against all the permits and so on, and record a reference number on the tally sheet. Declarations are cleared and inspected, and the inspection reports, they are vetted. The inspection reports are updated in Secuda. And of note, for containerized shipments, an appointment must be made with the port operators to accept same at the terminal. Customs declaration must be fully processed, so containers can enter the port via the port security systems, and ensuring that all the controls are met there. So we must have that done. For break bulk exports or less than container loads, the exporter must contact the shipping agents, and the customs declaration also has to be fully processed. A copy of the EX1 is to be presented or must be presented to the shipping agent to allow the goods into the warehouse. For LCLs, less than container loads, it is loaded for export on the port, and in instances, the K9 division of the Ministry of National Security must inspect the goods before loading. All export, personal, break bulk or containerized, must be scanned prior to export. How do we pay our fees? Customs utilizes various means of payment: cash payment up to $1 million, no foreign currency accepted; debit credit card, which must bear the names of the persons being exporting; manager's check made payable to the collector of customs; and of course there are online payments that is also available to you. So we're a revenue driven agency, and so we ensure that you have more than one option to pay the duties. So these are contact information that can be utilized to gain additional, if in case of query or concern. We have the JSIF YouTube platform. YouTube. It's there for you to go on and to view the process of utilizing the JSIF platform. We have various numbers here, as well as the customs webpage that we can access to gain additional information where necessary. I await any questions and questions or concerns that you might have. And as I said, our functions are pretty overlapping, so Mr. Brown has ably executed his presentation, and if you should have anything else regarding customs, I'm more than happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Atkinson. And you have done a very good job of making the process seem easy. And the Customs Department as well has done a very good job in making the process easy. So persons should be able to access the information and be on their way with their exporting of both personal and commercial produce or products from Jamaica. So we're happy that all the agencies are linked because, as you said, the Mr. Rowe from Plant Quarantine has arrangements with customs and it's the same process and it's the same thing from Jampro. So we're happy that everything seems streamlined for persons to understand the procedures and they can move forward with their exporting business. So we're quite happy about that. So it shows, it's very promising. So we'll move on now to Miss Shanique Edwards. She is a sales supervisor from sales promotions officer, from Jampro, and she will speak on the investment opportunities that are available for exporting. So welcome, Miss Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me today. And it's actually a pleasure to share with you some export opportunities for the agricultural produce. Please confirm that you are in fact seeing the presentation.
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. All right, so while I will be speaking to opportunities in agriculture, I will make mention of some value-added components during the presentation. All right, now the importance of agriculture to Jamaica's economy cannot be emphasized enough. And as you can see in the chart, at the end of 2021, the industry actually contributed 6.3% to the country's GDP. And this represents a total agricultural export of $80.4 million US, which is an 8.1% increase over 2020. And this contribution does not include that which is used in the food and beverage space, which is captured under manufacture. So just to pull out some of the contributions under manufacture, you can look at agriculture's contribution to the production of sauces, ackee, and processed fruits and vegetables. And those account for 33 million, 24 million, and 16 million respectively. Let's take a look at the world demand for some select produce. And for the purpose of this presentation, the world demand for 10 fresh commodities are highlighted here. And these were selected based on Jamaica's capacity to produce. As you can see, for the 4-year period ending December 2021, there has been moderate increases in the world demand for these commodities, with some demonstrating exceptional increase in demand, and we continue to see this trend even in 2022. Now, in the next 2 slides, we will take a look at the demands for these commodities specific to Jamaica's key export markets, and these include the USA, UK, Canada, and CARICOM. Now, after seeing these numbers, you will get a greater understanding of the opportunities that are available in agriculture. And so we won't be spending too much of a time here. We're just presenting it here for you so you can get a look at the demand that's coming from the USA, the UK, Canada, and CARICOM. And the US is actually our largest export market. And that's due to it being the home of the largest diaspora population for Jamaica, as well as our proximity to the market. That plays a key role as well. Let's take a look at the numbers for Canada and CARICOM.
Miss Edwards, just a minute. Would you be able to put that on slideshow? Because there's some really interesting statistics you have here. So is it possible for you to do that?
Sure. All right, let me stop sharing. Are you able to see it now? Any better?
No, we're not seeing it.
We're seeing it on our end.
Right.
Okay, you were? All right, I'm going to start again. Let me know when it's up.
Up.
Okay, so we'll look back at the world demand for these 10 commodities. And you can take a look at the very last column. You're seeing the percentage change in demand, and there are moderate increases that you're seeing here. Don't pay much of attention to the 2% decline in pineapple, because the decline actually took place in 2020 and it went back up in 2021. So the trends are showing that there is actually an increase in the demand as well. So these right here present some opportunities for persons in the agriculture space. Let's go ahead now for the demand as it pertains to our major markets. USA, as I said before, that's our largest export market, and that's owing to the fact that most of our diaspora reside in the US, as well as we have to take into consideration our proximity to that market. And then as it pertains to CARICOM, right now, even though we produce similar agricultural crops to our neighbors within the region, you can see here that there is still a demand for these commodities. And if there's a demand, it means that there's an opportunity for Jamaica to capitalize on this. Now let's go back home now. Let's come back home a little bit so we can see what exactly our export performance is or has been over the past 2 years. Right, so you can actually see here that the exports have actually increased over the past 2 years, and we are anticipating that 2022 will be an even better performance. So when you take a look at the demands that were presented earlier, and you look at what we have been exporting, you see right here that we have really only taken a very, very thin slice of the cake, right? Now, yams continue to be the top export earner for the agriculture industry, and this comprises not just the yellow yam, but there are actually over 7 varieties of yams. However, yellow yam is the main type that is exported, and this really shows you that there's an opportunity here for exports that we're not yet tapping into fully. Let's take a closer look now at some specific opportunities. For mango, Jamaican mangoes are highly sought after, with East Indian and Julian mangoes being the most demanded. And in fact, we're still unable to meet the demand for diaspora markets, which would be the USA, Canada, and the UK. As it pertains to ackee, for ackee, we continue to be affected by low supply. Demand is high, and what we realize is that we really need more orchards to supply our canning operations. Now, some initiatives are underway to increase supply. In fact, upwards of 5,000 seedlings have been put into production recently. However, this only represents a third of the number of trees needed to satisfy the demand for ackee. For breadfruit, we continue to see remarkable demand for it, especially with the increase in demand for gluten-free products. And importantly, this is not just for our diaspora markets, but also by mainstream consumers. And opportunities actually exist, not just for fresh breadfruit, but also for value-added breadfruit, because there is actually a trend towards convenient food, ready-to-eat and ready-to-heat products. So it's not confined to your highly processed foods. This can also be applied to our fresh foods by doing very light processing. For roots, tubers, and rhizomes, that's our ginger and our turmeric. The long-term demand for Jamaican ginger globally is estimated to be 21,000 tons. And our ginger is highly regarded, particularly for its potency. And this is actually true for turmeric as well. All right, now as you develop in the export space, there are some considerations that are key for you to take note of, right? So first, we have the trends here. And what we see here is that consumers are looking at food as medicine. So there's an increased focus on health and demand for quality produce, right? And they're actually looking for produce that not just tastes good, but produce that's blemish-free and bruise-free. There's a continued increase in purchasing convenience food, and convenience can be in the form of packaging. So yes, even though it's fresh produce, there's ways that you can package the product, your produce, in order for it to be more convenient to the end buyer of that product. Convenience can also be done through light processing, using light processing to prepare or to create ready-to-heat and ready-to-eat produce. So take, for instance, your breadfruit. You can roast it, slice it, freeze it, vacuum seal it, and that right there is a fresh produce item that is packaged in a convenient way and packaged in a way that is ready to heat. There is also a move for sustainable consumer behavior. Consumers are becoming more and more invested in the traceability of the food that they're eating. They want to know that there's no negative implications on the environment. They want to know that whoever they're buying from, that they themselves are also committed to safeguarding the environment, safeguarding human resources from any ills. Another key consideration, do your market research. So consider market access issues, regulations, and/or laws related to the markets you're interested in. It's also important for you to develop a market strategy or prepare a business plan. This is really integral for you to enter the export space, especially when markets differ. It's important for you to have a good understanding of what it is you're getting into. Also have a profile ready for the buyer. You want to be prepared. And we also use this profile when it is that we are assisting with engaging buyers in the space on your behalf. They're going to ask for the profile, so it's important for you to have that information. There's a snippet here on the right of your screen. It's called the Export Client Profile Form. And we may ask you to complete this. If it is you do not have a business plan, that's the Agribusiness team, we may ask you to complete this, and it really captures in more detail the produce that you have available, your capacity, as well as the export volume, how frequently you can supply a potential buyer with the produce that you say you have to offer. Other considerations, confirm logistics and your distribution channels. Take the time to develop price lists for your target markets in the currency of the market that you're targeting. With the exception of some that do not carry soft currencies, you may choose to use one of the hard currencies such as the US dollar. Assess payment options and terms before engaging potential buyers. It is also important for you to do your due diligence. Pay attention to sanitary and phytosanitary requirements for each market. Pay attention to packaging, labeling, and branding. And yes, it's fresh produce, but packaging, labeling, and branding, they are very important when it is that you are trying to position yourself as a key supplier in the export space. Be responsive and maintain open and effective line of communication. You find that sometimes you are presented with an opportunity and the buyer is not getting the emails, they're not getting the callbacks. That is a major deterrent to doing business. And we want to ensure that we are responsive when we are dealing with our buyers overseas. Also, importantly, there's a need for you to maintain proper accounts management. After all, agriculture is a business. It's big business, and it's important for you to have proper accounting practices and management. Right, so I've just presented here for you some key quality standards in the agribusiness space. If it is that you are only interested in exporting fresh, then you can look here at the primary agricultural products, the standards that fall under that category. It includes Global GAP. You have Good Agricultural Practices, Primus GFS, and there may be others. However, it's important for you to research the market that you would like to target and ascertain what quality standards they prefer. If it is that you'll be processing your fresh produce, any light processing at all, then it is important for you to take a look at some of the standards that will fall under processed goods. All right, so increasing exports is crucial to growing our economy. You have seen the demands that exist, and you have seen our export numbers. Now is actually the time for us to capitalize on the opportunities that exist. Exports offer considerable opportunities, and we can see that it is vital for us to take advantage of the demands that are available. It is important for us to recognize that now is actually time for us to grow more and take a bigger chunk of the export market. All the agencies here today stand ready to support you on this. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to taking the time to listen to this presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edwards. Boy, your presentation was really good, just like the others. You provided some really informative statistics for us to note of the contribution of agriculture to the sector, and also all the produce that are prime for as opportunities for export. So we really want to thank you for that presentation, because it was clearly put out there that now is the time for persons to really take advantage of all the opportunities that are available so they can grow more and export more and contribute more to our GDP. I just want to throw it out there that we at the Agro-Investment Corporation, we write business plans and we offer business counseling for persons who are interested in starting their business or growing their business and going into exports. We're here for you, and we have staff readily available to write your plans for you. We also recently launched an investment opportunity in Unity St. Mary, where we are asking for applications for 536 acres of prime agricultural land suitable for growing orchard crops such as breadfruit, ackee, avocado, coconut, So we're looking forward to persons who are on here, this platform, and you can spread the word that we are asking for persons to apply to us to take use of the opportunity that we have for the tree crops. Because of course, the arena is, I mean, it's huge, it's large, and we want persons to take advantage of whatever opportunities that are there out there. So, any questions you have for Ms. Edwards, she's willing to answer, and you can pose your questions in the chat as well as ask them when we're finished with the presentations. So now we'll move on to Mr. Lawrence White. He is a business development manager at the People's Cooperative Credit Union, or bank, NBPC Bank, and he will speak on how to finance your agricultural export business. So Mr. White, welcome. We're ready to listen to your presentation.
Good morning and thanks for having me. Good morning to all our members in the chat, our members, shareholders, investors, generally. I'm trying to upload the document here, so please bear with me. I am getting there. Just half a minute here.
Okay.
I find it, but I have a little difficulty uploading it, so
All right, is it the same presentation that we received from you?
right, that is correct.
Okay, I can share it. You'd like me to share it?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks. It's there now. Good morning again, and thanks and greetings from the National PC Bank. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we are.
All right. Okay, the National People's Cooperative Bank is primarily a development financial institution that provides a wide range of products and services for its many shareholders. Our mission statement is listed there: to promote and assist the social and economic development of its members and rural communities by providing the financial guidance and services they need. We provide a wide range of services that include loans, business, and non-business loans. Business loans are those facilities that generate revenue and provide income and return on its investment for the investor. Non-business comes under the category of personal loans, to include things like buying a car to drive to work, paying school fees, medical expenses, repair dwelling houses, that type of things. We also have savings products. We have a special partner investment facility, and we have regular passbook savings in addition to special investments. Allied services, these include services that we provide in partnership with other agencies like bill payment, life insurance plans. And one of the key plans that we provide is the family indemnity plan. That's a very popular one. We can provide more details as is required on the specific facilities. Now, in order to access any benefit from the PC Bank in terms of products or services, the investor has to apply to become a member shareholder of the institution, meaning that you are a part owner of the business. And that allows you to participate in all the products and services, annual general meetings, and serve on the various committees that exist. It involves also to purchasing shares and opening a basic passbook savings account. We can provide details in terms of the share contribution and the passbook opening facility dollar value in the question and answer. The criteria for loans are listed here, and it ranges to include all aspects of business loans: agriculture, non-agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, transportation, all of that. And it starts off by listing construction of structures for productive purposes. Structures to include for exporters things like packaging houses, grading facilities, providing equipment for grading, that type of thing, infrastructure, roads, that type of thing. Establishment of crops and livestock enterprises. And the crops, some were listed earlier: yams, ground provision, tree crops, all of those listed there: crops, livestock, large scale agriculture to what we call subsistence farming, which is also very important because most of our small farmers provide food security for their families and are able to send their kids to school. So at that level, we also provide the support and financing. Expansion or modification of structures, meaning that if you're operating, say, out of, say, 10,000 square foot production facility, we can assist you to move it to 20,000, providing the finances and the return on the investment support saves. And also, it provides some definite and clear impact on the wider society and community. We're looking also at purchasing of machinery and equipment. That is clear. Manufacturers, processors, farmers generally upgrade, improve, and expand also. Purchase of movable fixed assets, that is clear. Working capital support for the business up to 20% of the project costs. Rehabilitation of existing enterprises, meaning that you would have, say, an infrastructure that needs improvement to meet the standard requirements as far as exporting is concerned. We could lend you money for that purpose also. And renewable energy, which is quite topical. Most persons, the energy costs provides one of the highest costs for the business. Hence, we are into providing that type of support, primarily as we speak, solar energy. There are other facilities that require much more in terms of research than we presently do at the PC Bank. Solar is very topical. We are big into that, providing it for large-scale contract poultry farmers and manufacturers. So in terms of the purpose alone, every individual who is interested to borrow, to invest, there is some facility there that speaks to their particular need. And we continue. Eligibility conditions as it relates to how we go about processing the loans. NPC approval will be conditional on projects being considered for loans meeting the following criteria. First and foremost, it has to be financially viable, competently managed or capable of doing so. An investor wants to go into mushroom production, for argument's sake, might not have the technical expertise to do it, but the cash flow projections and the indications suggest that that is quite viable. He would have to be able to employ that technical person that can manage, supervise, and bring the project to success. So being capable of doing so speaks to that point. The promoter's contribution of a maximum of 30% of the project costs is in place. And the promoter's contribution is the same thing that we refer to as equity in the business. So let's say the total cost of the project is 100,000. We would lend you 70, anywhere between 70, 80, and you provide the difference. The contribution in terms of the equity, the 30%, can be in cash. It can be work that has been done within the last 6 months or thereabout. Also, part of the concerns that we have is some of the investors tend to use receivables as part of their 30%. Now, if you are manufacturing and handling perishables like cash crops, that type of thing, and your marketer owes you money for the last year and is unable to repay in the short term, it means that you couldn't rely on that receivable to inject as part of your equity. So there has to be some certainty and reliability in terms of that. The project has to be technically feasible, meaning that when we run the numbers, we look at it and we see that it can work. Somebody might like fish farming, but the area that you reside is very sandy, so the water retaining capacity, would not make it possible, or the cost to line the pond to make the thing feasible would not be cost effective. All right, so it has to be technically feasible. Appropriate marketing plan is in place, meaning that there's no mystery in producing crops, goods, services. However, marketing it, deliver it into market in good quality in a timely manner is also key. So the appropriate marketing plan is in place. It's easy to raise 500 chickens at the back of your house and sell it on a Sunday morning to your neighbor, that type of thing. If you move that similar production to 5,000 birds, it's a different type of marketing arrangement we're looking at. I just use that simple example. There's a reasonable likelihood of profits as evidenced by the internal rate of return of the project. Positive contribution to economic development of the country in terms of employment generation, foreign exchange earnings and savings, promotion of new business, and expansion of existing enterprises for economic growth. I just comment on the employment generation. Most development banks facilities are very sympathetic to projects that has a high labor component, because a successful project must not only impact on a return on investment for the investor, but it employs people, the shopkeepers benefit, kids are able to go to school, and there is visible growth, development, and improvement within the particular catchment area or community. So that's what we regard as success, and by extension, the country benefits. All right, foreign exchange earnings and savings, we spoke to that. Promotion of new business and expansion of enterprise for economic growth. Loan terms will be influenced by the enterprises for which a loan is granted, as well as the projected cash flow. Let me explain that in short. In banking, we look at loan terms as short-term, medium-term, long-term. Short-term would be up to 2 years, medium-term up to 5, and long-term in excess of 5. So depends on how your business plan is configured. You could have a short-term crop like tomato, cabbage, Irish potato that we would finance for medium, because if you have to include things like irrigation facilities and all of that, you could recover the costs of all the other inputs in terms of the support, the irrigation and all of that infrastructure within the short term. So careful planning on the part of the investor, the person doing the business plan, how you present it, how you configure it is very important. All right. We will support agricultural loans with a maturity of a maximum of 15 years. For some projects, in recent times, I just use a contract poultry, for example, because we have some very modern, sophisticated infrastructure now used to raise chicken. It's like an air-conditioned facility we're talking about. That type of facility we couldn't write off a cost site in less than 15 years, and the cash flow projections from it suggest that 15 years is a reasonable time frame to give an investor to borrow and progress and repay his loan on a timely basis, right? Moratorium and principal payments up to 4 years will be granted. 4 years speak to long-term crops. There are some enterprises, especially tree crops, which are quite topical in the previous presenters. Things like mangoes, breadfruit, ackee, coffee to an extent. Most of these crops, you wouldn't get any economic return until after, say, 3 years. So within 3 years now to 4 years, you'd be expected to start repaying by then. During that period, though, you will be required to pay your interest charges. Hence, careful planning to include intercropping where possible to generate revenue within that 4-year period to make the project financially viable. For some farmers, intercropping sometimes help them to repay 75% of their loan before the due date. So careful planning is required in that respect. Processing applications. The promoter is required to have a business plan or project proposal prepared for evaluation by the National PC Bank. And the information in the proposal should include the following. Yes, amount and term of financing required. Description of project activity to be financed with necessary attachments. Details of the source of procurement, uses and character of the materials or equipment to be purchased. In case of equipment, the associated capital costs to be incurred and how they will be financed. Cost of operation, changes in sales, both domestic and export, expected to arise from the requested financing. The promoter's past performance for existing business, which speaks to your financial statements. I remember now agriculture is big business. Business like any other entity, where you are required to file your returns to provide financial statements, not only for tax purposes, but if you visit a financial institution, including the financial institution that I work with, I want to look at your last 3 years' performance to see whether or not the risk that we are taking is the best one for both the institution and the investor, and to see how well you're managing your business over the last 3 years, assuming that there were no extenuating circumstances like a hurricane or anything like COVID that would have set you back in any major way. And the notes of the financial statement would speak to that, right? Where promoters' past experience, financial projections and assumptions, and the relevant legal permits and approvals in place to be sought. Permits now would include things like permits from the Parish Council, from NEPA, from Scientific Research Council, recommendations from JAMPRO, and all the commodity groups that the particular investment or enterprise relates to. One thing I missed out is that the project should be legal. And when I say legal, what I mean, we wouldn't lend you money to invest. Well, marijuana now is getting more clarity than 20 years ago. So we won't lend you anything to invest that is illegal. Also, we won't lend you money to raise pigs in a housing scheme, because in that case, it would breach the zoning in terms of the regulations. So legality and the permits and all of that is consistent with that explanation. NPCB will evaluate the financial strength and creditworthiness of the promoters, meaning that the monies that we lend you in terms of by way of loan funds comes from other shareholders' contributions, and by extension, when we use to access funds from the DBG. So we want to be sure that we are doing business with the right persons. They meet the fit and proper. The credit report speaks to their past performance and whether or not we are taking a good risk. It does not necessarily mean that if somebody has a unreasonable credit history, they would not qualify for a loan. The fact of the matter is that we would now have to evaluate that closely and put in special conditions in place that you would have to satisfy for us to do business together, because we have to be prudent in managing our shareholders' investments and savings with the bank. All right? So a credit report, a fair credit report or a bad credit report, as long as the notes to it can be considered, wouldn't preclude you from getting a loan. The PC Bank will establish terms, maturity, and security of collateral requirements to satisfy its credit determination. If you look, you see where we have collateral close to the bottom of the entire presentation, because ideally we look at the financial health of the business, we look at the person, and we ensure that we are participating in a project that has positive impact and is financially viable. So let's say we get a project, it is financially viable, there's an effective demand for the products and services, the investor is technically competent, and the only challenge he's having is collateral. We would now find creative ways and means to see how best we can finance such a project. Right? So collateral, though important, is not the single determining factor in granting a loan. So the maximum amount of credit the NCB will make available and the duration of the loan, the effective period of the commitment during which disbursement of the loans will be made, the duration of any grace period. As I said before, the grace period has some direct link to the crop maturity. So if you establish and start to harvest within 6 months and start to realize economic returns, we would not give you a year grace. But if the cash flow projections show that you won't be able to start earn until after a year, like coffee. Coffee is an annual crop, means it's a 1-year crop. So after the year, you would not get monthly payments or anything from the market, because you get a half yearly and then when you get a final payment, which some people call a bonus. So we couldn't give you a monthly repayment schedule. So it's really annual payment, right? And the grace period for a crop like coffee will be 3 to 4 years, because you will get any economic returns until that period, all right? The duration of any grace period spoke to that. The terms of repayment of the loan, whether it is monthly, quarterly, half yearly, annually, has to do with the crop cycle. And the conditions established by NPCB, there are preconditions and special conditions. A precondition would be that before disbursement, we would have to put in a deduction order with the market to ensure that the funds are remitted to us. A special condition would be that we say to you, the commitment fees may be challenging up front, but we'll put in a condition that the commitment fees are factored into the total loan program and you repay it over that period of time, right? So those are some of the conditions, just examples. The amount of commitment fee ranges from anywhere between 2 to 3%, and the interest rates and other charges, those are discussed. And I deliberately did not include the interest rate, because interest rate, though important, institutions cannot compete on interest rates, because any institution can change a rate, increase and drop. It depends on the market and what the BOJ dictates and the financial climate. The cash flow projection will guide us in terms of how successful the project is at a particular rate. most of the time, if the persons that struggle in business and in banking, if they receive the money at 2%, they would still have a problem. So 90% of the people that are struggling is not because the interest rate is more management and the technical capability of handling the investment. And the loans will be required to be repaid as scheduled as per agreement where possible. A deduction order will be put in place to remit funds to the bank from sources. So essentially, in a nutshell, that's the loan process, the lending process, and the loans and the credit process is kind to fit and support any investment or investor. The standard principle remains the same, whether you're doing it from as a farmer through the process of exporting. One recommendation that we make, you have some persons who are exporters and also farmers. I suggest that we keep separate records for the farm, from that of the exporting side of the business. So the farm technically produces and sells to the export business, because at some point in time you'd want to establish which side of the business is more profitable for you, or which side of the business you are more competent and can be successful with. If there are any questions, I can handle those after. And sorry for the delay in having the presentation up and running on time.
Okay, Mr. White, thank you so much. Okay, so you've heard Mr. White, and his presentation was quite informative as well. He basically gave all the necessary information that you need, the criteria, the eligibility process, which is very important. And he also cited some examples that are in alignment with what is relevant in the industry, which is really good. So Mr. White is very much aware of what is happening. And we're really appreciative of the efforts of all the presenters so far. So if you would like to finance your business, your exporting business, the PC Bank definitely will lend you the loans. But of course, they'll have to protect their shareholders' contribution, as Mr. White said, and they'll have to examine your business and determine whether it is feasible for them to lend you their loan. So going forward, we invite questions from anybody else who wants to learn more about the exporting process and the requirements, how to finance their business and so on. So we received a few questions from persons so far, and I will tell you what they are so that each presenter can respond to the questions. So the first question that we got now was directed to Ms. Carr at Jampro. The person said, if you decide to stop exporting for 5 years and you are informed of this, are we still required to pay for the license back fee for these years? So that question was for Ms. Carr.
Yes, so sorry. All right, so once it is that you've been inactive for 5 years and over, you would only be required to start over from scratch. So that means the fee that you'd pay would be $3,500.
Okay, so that question was from Ms. Camille. Ms. Camille, so I'm hoping that she got her question answered and she's still online and she heard the response. Okay, so the other question now is first somebody asked, what about selling in small amounts on a virtual platform? What is required?
Okay, so for that, the requirements would still remain the same. So once it is that you're exporting to incur revenue from the exports, you definitely need to be registered with the Jampro, and all the requirements would be the same. They would remain as all the requirements discussed earlier in the presentation.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Kerr. All right, so questions were posed for Mr. Rowe from Plant Quarantine. And somebody wanted to know if there is a location requirement for the packing facility.
location requirement. We have requirement for packing facility. Not necessarily. Well, if you're trying to put a facility in a residential location, then I guess you would have to abide by that all the regulation that municipal regulation that govern that facility, because are putting that commercial facility in a residential zone, because we have seen where companies come to us wanting to place their packing facility in residential space and they get challenged by the community. So it's best if it's a location where you won't have an issue with any municipal corporation. Right. So if you so that is what you would have to research first and come to us before you try to establish that. And ensure you get that approval from your municipal corporation before.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. All right, so another person wanted you to share an outline of the requirements for packing houses, and I believe this was in your presentation, right? So what we'll do is we will definitely email that part of it to the person who asked the question, because I believe it was in a presentation. Another question that was posed to you, Mr. Rowe, is you did not state the new requirement for floor as it was reduced from 1,000 square feet. So I guess this person wants to know if the requirement is the same or not.
Oh, so we had 1,000 square feet. It's no longer 1,000 square feet. So if you have less, if you have like 600, what we'll say to you is that you must show us, or you would sectionize your facility and maintain food safety integrity, and of course the phytosanitary integrity of the facility. So you have to demonstrate that to us. It could be that you will have you'll have some schedule in terms of how you process your items. You may have to establish some kind of food safety plan to show us so that you're not going to have any cross contamination and so forth. But when you have a smaller space, it becomes very difficult for you to operate. And say you're doing products like yam. Yam requires a large space. And if you do not have that space requirement, it can be challenging if you're going to markets like US or Canada. We don't want anybody to be packing goods outside their facility. So you will have to demonstrate those. I know it's best, smaller space is best for people who are doing dry products like herbs and so forth. It's one single product like a pepper. It's usually best for those companies.
Okay, someone's mic is on, so can I mute it, please?
And just one more thing. So for that person, they can contact us. We'll have further dialogue with them. We can actually look at your space and provide advice as to how you could establish that facility.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Rowe. All right, so I hope well, he gave a very detailed response a while ago, so I'm hoping that answered the question. And we just want to reiterate that whatever questions persons have, these can be answered by all the presenters that presented, and the information can be sent to you via email. So don't worry, we will send the information. And if you have further questions, we will send those as well once you have emailed us. So there were questions now for customs. Oh, just one question. Somebody wanted to know whether do the exporter and their staff need to have a food handler's permit from the Ministry of Health. So this was directed to Mrs. Atkinson from Customs.
This would be an agency function of Ministry of Health.
Okay.
Not necessarily for customs.
But to the best of my knowledge, once you're handling food, it is required. It's a requirement. But you can get further clarification from the entity, the agency themselves, or the ministry.
All right, so for Mr. White now from NPC Bank. All right, so somebody wanted to know what's the interest rates on the loans that you offer?
For agricultural loans, as we speak, generally it's 9% reducing balance. And remember, the reducing balance factor is very instructive. There are different computations out there. And what it means, let me explain simply. If you get $1 million to borrow for 10 years, the first year, the interest will be calculated on $1 million, second year 900,000, third year 800,000, so the interest reduces. And there's no penalty for paying before the schedule, because it allows us to have that funds to lend to somebody else. So reducing balance principle is very instructive.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so another question is supposed to say, is collateral required for the loans?
Collateral is required for every facility or some support. Where somebody has a structured arrangement in place. Let's say someone is planting, I use Irish potato for example. They have a structured marketing arrangement is in place. The marketer signs a deduction order that they will take all the Irish potato, send a check to the bank, we pay the difference. So that facility exists as we speak. We are partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture and some of the farm programs to facilitate those where there's a structured system in place to recover your money. But generally speaking, all loans have to be secured. But there are exceptions, and loans are discussed and reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. If your credit record is not good, we will lend you an unsecured loan just like that.
Okay.
Even if you're recommended by the agency.
All right, so somebody wanted to know now how they contact the NPC Bank. Yeah.
There's a PC bank within any 10-mile radius of wherever you are in Jamaica. The banks are listed. The number for the head office is 962-5360. And when you contact the head office, you could tell them that you want to be transferred to the Highgate branch, to the Bagwalk branch, to the Whole Harbour branch, to the area.
Okay, so branches are in the major towns?
Some. Because remember, the PC Bank was set up for rural financing. So one stage we had one up in Mavis Bank up in the hills, but with technology and transportation improvement, people move around easier than 40 years ago.
Okay. All right. So so all the branches are on the website?
Yes, they are on the website.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So another person, go ahead.
Before you go on, just backtracking and Beta sought some clarification concerning the question for the benefit of the person who asked about the food handler's permit.
Okay.
It not to be required because, of course, this is our requirement locally. So once it is that the goods are being exported, the Bureau of Standards is the certifying body that would come and vet for that particular compliance.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that information. So it's really BSJ. Okay.
Yes.
All right. For Mr. White, you again. So another person wanted to know how Jamaicans who currently reside outside of Jamaica can access services from the PC Bank.
There are a number of services that can be afforded to them, but it is also important that we know who we are doing business with. You know, technology allows us to do that sometimes. So let's say John Brown lives in the United States of America and he wants to do a development here. He could appoint some family member by way of a power of attorney to act on their behalf. Soon and very soon, could be less than 5 months, we will have our banking platform will be improved to compare to that of most financial institutions that are available. Hence, internet banking and all of that will be afforded. Presently, we have upgraded to the point where if you are in Westmoreland and you want to do a transaction from your account in Stony Hill, you can do it. Right, so the system is online, but to do it externally, it poses a challenge for most institutions because it's about knowing your customer. So if you don't know the party where you're doing business with, it would be unreasonable to extend yourself in a similar way to that which you do it with somebody locally.
Okay. All right. So the other questions.
Excuse
All right, so
me, Mrs.
right.
Howard. Hi, I'd asked another question, and I think this question is directed to you. You had mentioned about how many acres of land available, and I wanted some information, and I guess other people would like to know how do they go about applying for the land, you know, the what should I say, the stuff that is required, etc.
Okay, all right. So the land that I mentioned is for tree crops, is a tree crop opportunity, and it is in Unity St. Mary. So it's 536 acres of land. Now we had advertised the land in the media. That's how we go about the process. We advertise, and persons should respond to the advertisement within the period of time. Somebody's mic is open. Let's see. Some feedback there. Right. So person should apply to us within the time frame that is in the advertisement. So we usually give 2 to 3 weeks, or for the most part 2 weeks for persons to apply. Now, when you apply, we usually go through a process of reviewing your application and then selecting the persons based on their feasibility of being able to manage the land, based on their markets that they have and their finances. Now, if it is that you miss that application process, you can submit an unsolicited application to us and we will review it. But then it is best that you apply within the time frame that we set for the advertisement. At the moment, we received some applications for that particular plot of land, but the review is being done now to see if we have any persons that's okay to go on the land. So we will update and provide some sort of advertisement in the media after this, I think within a week or so persons will know now whether those lands are still available or they're all taken up. So we're in the review process now for that property. But as I said before, you can definitely apply to us nonetheless and state what it is that you're interested in. So if you're interested in growing the ackee or breadfruit or whatever it is, then you can also, we have our application forms online. You can download them, print them off, fill them out, and we have persons here who can assist you with the process of filling out your application forms. So we will definitely send the information to you via email or by WhatsApp, whatever means of communication that you have provided to us, we will send it to you. So that's it for the opportunity. So anytime we have a land available, that's the process. We advertise, you apply, and we go through the necessary process of choosing persons to put on the land based on their eligibility. That's it.
Okay, is there a cost associated with it? Like, would it be processing fees, anything like that?
Yes.
Or
so there is a $2,000 processing fee that you can pay online, or you can come into our offices to pay through our cashier. So and it is non-refundable. Yes. And that's not a surety that you're going to get the land. That's for processing. So I just want to make that clear. All right. So generally, the land that we have available for that type of opportunity is unirrigated most times. So the actual lease is the structure is different. So it's between $4,000 to $7,000 per acre per annum to lease land like that. So usually persons apply and we walk them through that process of the cost and whatever it is that they need to present to us. We walk you through the entire process when you apply.
Okay, thank you. And could you just share the website in the chat
Yes,
or the
definitely.
WhatsApp number? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So anybody else that have questions, you can just click on the raise hand feature and we will answer your questions as we go along. All right. So we're going to answer two other questions as it relates to land and opportunity. And then what we'll do is we'll just send a response to all persons who have posed questions because we're getting ready to wrap up now. All right, so somebody wanted to know if there are opportunities for youth. Yes, we have a youth in agriculture program in conjunction with Jamaica 4-H clubs and RADA. And how that works is whenever we have the opportunity available, so we have identified where we're going to put the youths, because so far we have earmarked several acres of land across our agri parks and production zones for the youth program. So as soon as we have earmarked another location, we usually advertise in the media, whether on social media or in the traditional media, and persons should apply through the Jamaica 4-H clubs. And then the applications are sent over to us for us to review, and then we complete that process where we call persons and tell them that they have been successful in getting the land, and then they're put on the land based on their eligibility. So that's the process for the youth program. So persons who are interested in being a part of that program should just listen out for the advertisements in the media and apply through the Jamaica 4-H clubs, because that's really the entity, the youth arm of the ministry, and they are the ones that the application should go through them. So that's pretty much it for the youth program. So at the moment, we are looking at other areas of land earmarked for the youth program. So as soon as those are ready, we will send out promotions in the media. Okay, so another question that somebody posed now was whether we have access to land availability for sale or lease in other parishes. Okay, so we don't sell land. We lease the land that we have management for here. And where we have management capability for land is in St. Catherine, Clarendon, in St. Thomas, St. Elizabeth, and production zones across the island in St. Mary and Westmoreland and other places. So what you have to do is to call us or write to us, or our website is www.agriinvest.gov.jm. Our email address will be sent in the chat. It's info@agriinvest.gov.jm. So for persons who are interested in leasing land, you can write to us. You can call us on 923-0086, and we definitely will answer whatever questions that you have as it relates to land and where the opportunity is. So all of this information will be sent to persons who have posed questions in the chat as soon as we see a question, we'll send the information to you. Right. All right, so Dorian, I've seen that we have raised your hand, so we'll allow you to ask your question and two other persons, and then we will just close. So you may go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been very informative. But for me, as a small farmer, small producer, and particularly internationally certified organic producer, we didn't hear enough about the elephant in the room, and that is JACRA, who, because their regulations discriminate against small. And that makes it quite difficult for us small producers to get our products to market. Particularly being organic, I have coffee, I have ginger, I have turmeric, and I'm supposed to have separate licenses for each of those. But for coffee, I'm too small to get the license. I actually work through the Jamaica Coffee Growers Association. I'm lucky. Most small producers don't have that. So that is something that I think you need to think about and address, because there is a specialty market out there which is not being served.
Okay, so on your behalf, we will contact JACRA and seek guidance as to the procedures for small growers.
They don't have procedures for small growers. You have to produce 6,000 boxes to get a license for coffee. Small growers don't have that. So you're immediately excluded from moving up the value chain. You're supposed to sell your cherry on to the big producers. And I think that to ask small producers to pay several different licenses, like ginger, I got an order for ginger. JACRA didn't even know that I grew ginger. And it's organic Jamaica ginger, uncorrupted by any Chinese or Hawaiian. It's pure Jamaica ginger. I couldn't do it because they said, oh, I needed a license and they had standards. Never seen the standards. I know that I meet the international certification standards, but you could ask about that and about whether people who are producing a multiplicity of crops at the small level, how they handle it.
Okay,
I
so
didn't
we will
get a
definitely
response when I asked.
Okay, we'll definitely look into that and have discussions with the JACRA team to find out how we can go around or actually move ahead with the whole exporting process for small farmers or small growers. So you will could you identify?
One of the things I could tell you is that the Jamaica Coffee Growers Association applied to JACRA to be able to sub-license. And it's taken a year and a half, and then they said no. And we felt that that was the best way of controlling, assuring standards, and moving small producers forward. But thanks, if you can get any answers, it would be very much appreciated.
Okay, all right. So leave your name and contact information in the chat, and we will definitely look into it for you. So we'll move on to Kimberly now, who I see her hand raised. So you can go ahead, Kimberly.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I really wish that I heard the entire presentation from start. I had connectivity issues from I came on 10 o'clock. So I hope to get the recording so I can actually sit and listen to it in its entirety again. But I did catch bits and pieces. I hope everyone is hearing me. I did catch.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I did catch bits and pieces, and I do like sessions like these because it's very informative. But my questions are really geared towards PC Bank. No, I'm familiar with PC Bank because I joined PC Bank from as a child, and I can tell you, PC Bank it's hard to get help from PC Bank. The systems are very archaic. The person that they employ, they have an archaic mindset as well, and it's very frustrating to the business with them. It's so unfortunate because initially it was positioned as a farmers bank, so you'd think that the thrust would be geared more towards farming. I'm not talking farming. I'm not talking just the small scale farming. I mean large scale farming, because the narrative has not moved from farming being big business and that people who are intellectual do farming as well. They think it's just persons who don't have any other form of education, so they take up farming as an option when it's not the case, right? And PC Bank, very hard to do business with them. I even went when I tried to go on the facilities and they wanted audited financial statements. It's expensive to get audited financial statements. When I said to them that I got it unaudited, but I have a cover letter from an actual chartered accountant, they never understood what I was talking about. Very difficult. So as the people you're asking if they do offer loans to startups, I don't know what the procedure is there. I spoke to the operations manager about it before to say that, it's just really disappointing. If you look in the PC banks across Jamaica, them always empty because guess what? They are not capturing the attention of people because of their practices as a bank. And it's very disappointing. I mean, they're under DBJ and DBJ have all these financing. I don't even know how the opportunities, if they link, I don't know what is happening. But if they're really serious about helping people, it cannot be how they do things now. Because that's just so frustrating. And when you think about it, the interest rates as well, the requirements, and you definitely, I mean, any bank at all, not just PC Bank, they really don't offer revenue-based loans. It's strictly collateral-based. And you have to pull teeth to get some other facility. But it's really not helpful. And if we're serious about it, there are many factors that really go into this. The land is part of it and the challenges too, because I've been trying to get land and it's hard to get land from government agencies. You have to be jumping through hoops and trying to contact this person, contact that person. So you end up going the private route, which is more expensive. And, the cost to just set up and get going is just really expensive. It's very frustrating. But I do hope that having attended these sessions, I'll make some networks and hopefully I'll get some assistance along the way. But it's really frustrating as a young person who's trying. And when you get as much as information and you go out there and you're trying to just do these things and they put in front of you to prevent you from pretty much going any further. The bureaucracy of it all is just the problem. Thank you.
Okay, so what would you like to see happen from PC Bank?
Well, their management would have to restructure themselves, and I don't know who can do that. They do things backwards. I mean, I had a partner plan and I used to transfer through the NCB and had to call them out there and they don't see it and they stand in order. And when I say backward, I don't even know if there's another word that can amplify backward to describe it. It's just hard. And then they had a very good partner plan, and they cut the interest rate on it. I don't know why they did that, but they cut it. So I don't even know what to call it now. But before it was good. Now it's just regular. Just put the money in there because it's in there. And I'm very disappointed. I mean, as I said before, I joined when I was very, very small. I used to walk across the road to go to the bank. And it's just disappointing now that, they have not, I don't think they have been doing much to insert themselves in the market. When you go to these commercial banks, they hear these loans, the rates that they want. And here it is, this is supposed to be like a premier farmers bank. They're doing nothing.
All right. What would you want to see happen? Are you going to leave your number and your information so we can have dialogue on your behalf, or?
It's no problem on everybody's behalf that is here, because a lot of persons here are going to have challenges getting capital. That's part of the problem. Even you have your own little monies, by time if you want to scale a business, you need capital. So
okay. All right, can you leave your contact information and we will definitely reach out to you to find out how best we can bridge the gap, because we don't want our young persons in agriculture getting frustrated at all. We need you. So we're going to ask you to leave your contact information in the chat so we can definitely reach out to you and work something out as best as we can.
We can work out, don't commit yourself.
So we are going to move on now to Mr. Shamari Brown, the last person we're going to take a question from. You can go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I had my hand raised.
Oh, it's me.
Where can I help? My question is, where can I help with finding cards? For like
just a second. Who else is speaking?
I had my hand raised.
Yeah, man, Mr. Shamari.
Hi, my question is like, where could I get
Right.
help with finding like buyers for like yellow yam and things like that? Like, what website could I go to?
Say that again.
Where could I get help with like finding buyers for like yellow yam and things like that?
Okay, all right. So you can submit your information in the chat, and we have cluster coordinators who can assist with that. So send us your information, and we will definitely work out something.
I'm hoping I could squeeze my question in because I've had my hand raised for over 15 minutes now.
Okay, all right. So you can go ahead, and we'll take the last question.
Okay, thank
This
you
is
very
Tiffany?
much. Yes,
Okay,
this is
all
Tiffany.
right.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I'm so grateful for this seminar. Thank you so much. My questions are directed to Mr. Lawrence. Kimberly, who just came off, I can actually say that I understand completely with what she's saying because I would have experienced some of what she's saying, not directly with PC Bank, which is why I got so excited when I heard Mr. Lawrence speaking. So I'm hoping that whatever experience she would have had, that the insight that Mr. Lawrence would have given us just now, that it is somewhat different. Because I am excited after listening to him speaking. I just have two quick questions, and I'm going to follow up with an email. I had asked if there's a maximum amount that the PC Bank lends, and I'm just going to tie my friend's Carlene question in it to ask if they offer loans to purchase land. So there's two questions in one. Is there a maximum amount, and do you offer loans for land?
Okay, so that question is for Mr. White.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. White, you can go ahead.
Yes, I'm willing.
Right.
There is no registered or documented minimum. We have a microfinance facility where we start, and that's unsecured you're talking about now. And that's doing fairly well, where we start from 40,000, you graduate, you repay, you go up to 70, and you go up to a maximum of 700,000. That's unsecured loans. A small microfinance. The other end now, we finance close to 70-80% of all the contract poultry farmers in Jamaica. Two of those houses, the loan facility for two of those houses will be close to 170 million, and we have facilitated persons putting up 3 and 4 houses. I'm not sure if that answered the question in that direct way. There's no documented minimum or maximum.
Okay.
It speaks to the cash flow. And there's no shortage of funds to be lent. I put that on record, right?
Okay.
So if you have a business proposal, bring it in to us, visit one of our locations, we can look at it. Or my number is available through the medium here. You can give me a call and we can have the necessary discussions, and I could refer you to a particular branch in close proximity to you and stuff like that. Part of the challenge, if I may add, is that most of the persons borrowing significant sums, we're talking about 100, 200 million. When you look at the debt equity, which is 80-20 or 70-30, a lot of persons cannot come up with the equity for the project, and then we have difficulty moving ahead. So it's careful planning, thinking it through, getting an understanding, and I won't hold up the meeting much longer. I'm just making the point that a lot of persons coming to us with business plan and don't have a clue in terms of the contents of the business plans. The financial plan is crucial. Where the items under consideration listed, it states what your contribution is supposed to be. It states what the loan amount will be and the total cost. A lot of persons have difficulty satisfying the requirements.
And I'm not to cut you, Mr. White, I completely understand what you're saying. If I should squeeze another question in, and this is my last question, if let's say I want $10, right? And I have a business proposal, but I also have a salary that can facilitate a loan deduction. Is that something that would give me an edge? Yes or no?
There's precedence for that. We have done that in the past, and we continue to do that. Salary deduction is one of the most certain ways of recovering any loan funds, and we facilitate that. Just provide proof of employment, stability of employment, that type of thing, and we can have a meaningful discussion.
Okay, Mr. White, thank you so much. I really appreciated your
And let me
presentation.
use the medium to apologize to the lady who spoke a while ago. I can understand what she's saying. However, thousands of persons have benefited and have been satisfied. We will have persons who have had some misfortune or less than favorable circumstances, but we are willing to listen, willing to assist. Without having all the details, I apologize on behalf of the bank if she had that type of challenge. But things have improved significantly.
Well, I'm actually
Mr.
looking
White, thank you
forward
so
to
much
some
for
good
that.
service. I'm looking forward to some good service, Mr. White, and I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be deterred by what I heard before. I'm actually looking forward to coming into the PC Bank. And Lucia, thank you so much for facilitating this seminar, and I'll be in touch with you via email. Thanks a
All
lot.
right, you're most welcome. All right, so we will take the 2 questions from Joel and Leroy, and then we will wrap up because they've been raising their hands for quite some time. So, Joel, you can go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon again.
Yeah, my question was how can I get contact with buyers overseas where I can ship potatoes and yams to? Is there a list of possible buyers overseas that I can with contact details? So if I want to export and I want to ship my yam and potatoes overseas, where can I get assistance in finding these buyers overseas? That's my question.
Okay, all right. So what we can ask you to do is either you can supply information in the chat or you can call us directly and we will guide you through that process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Leroy, you're up next.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Just one comment. Some of the questions persons raised, I probably would be interested in some of the responses. So I don't know if there's a facility where you could, broadcast back some of those responses to participants instead of us requesting the same information through the direct link to you. But my question is really for the PC Bank, Mr. Lawrence. Right. I wanted to know, he mentioned that he would need to see financial statements for the last 3 years. If persons are just starting up, how do we get around not having financial statement for 3 years to show performance?
Okay. It's a standard request for financial institutions that where possible, we go back as far as 3 years. So the 3 years is as far back as you go, right? For some persons, what we require is just a basic income and expenditure statement through a sophisticated business plan, or there must be some reference or visit your farm and see that, hey, you have sound practices, you have the technical competence and all of that, the quality of your produce is good, and we use that also as part of the assessment to go forward. But if we know nothing about you and you're just coming off of the street to any institution, they want to see your last 3 years performance to take a decision. It doesn't mean that if you had a bad year, you won't be financed, because there could be reasons for that. You could go through a hurricane, you could go through COVID, all of that, So it's not an unreasonable request. But if you're just into business, you might only have 1 year, you might have 6 months performance. We look at your farm records, your purchases, your sales and all of that thing, your farm record book and all of that, if it's farming you're doing, and it guides us. But there must be something for us to look to take a decision on.
I hear Mr. White, but it's just that, this seminar also encouraging persons to, invest and to look at opportunities and so forth. So I might be on the platform here now, and based on what they told me about ginger and all those things, and possibility of export, sweet potato and all these things, I might now want to look at that option of agriculture and want to secure land, get land, or if I have access to land, to go into that process, but I might not have the capital to start, So I was thinking about that element of it. Fine, I might be in farming probably because of some other reasons, and I come in now because I want to expand and, grow the business. But what about those who are just about to start, and the organization says they can assist you in putting forward a business plan, so action down the road as to what possibly could happen. I put in 5 acres of sweet potato or 2 or 1. Income from that is X. All the capital input in terms of irrigation, if I'm going to use that, tractor, land preparation, fertilization, chemicals, slips, labor, all those things can be itemized and show when you're going to have income, 4 months, 3 months or so. But I need the capital to start. How can the PC Bank assist?
We can assist you, and there's an element of the business plan or the proposal that speaks to background, history of the client. So you might not have been a farmer, but you have been a successful businessman for the last 10 years. So business practices, sound business practices are transferable into farming or from farming to any other business. So it's a number of factors you take into account. We take into account also your credit record. So it's a number of things put together, reach the stage where we make a final determination.
So I understand. Right. It is not just a clean cut and dry. Don't have no financial statement for 3 years. If you're just starting, then you're off the charts. What you're saying then is that person probably just need to come in, explain themselves, show what is happening, and then you can have some options where it's possible. That's what you're saying.
Quite so.
Thank you, sir.
How your business plan is positioned or kind is important. It needs to tell us something about you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Rowe, I see that your hand is raised. Mr. Damien Rowe?
Yes, I just want to provide. Yes, are you hearing me?
Right. We're hearing you.
Right, so that's a few clarification. One of the caller said they are seeking where they can get buyers for yams and so forth. It will be clear if that person indicate whether they're seeking local buyers or they're seeking international buyers. And then there's another caller that seek information on export market or buyers overseas. Just want to make it clear that for the US market, we do not have market access for sweet potato. It is best sometimes for exporters or people who want to export, check with Plant Quarantine to find out what product we have market access for. Because even though there's a global demand, like John would have presented, we do not have market access to every market. So we would have to provide or do that work to provide the market access for those products going into the different respective markets. So it's best to contact Plant Quarantine regarding that. And I think Jumper is a good place to start when you're looking market overseas. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rowe, thank you so much for that. Okay, so we are going to wrap up now. We thank every presenter so far. I mean, you did an outstanding job in providing all the relevant information that persons wanted. So going forward, of course, we'll be reaching out to provide whatever information that they need after this presentation. So thank you so much, Ms. Carr from Jampro, Mr. Rowe from Plant Quarantine, Mrs. Atkinson from Jamaica Customs, Ms. Edwards from Jampro again, and Mr. White. We thank you so much, so much. The information given was extensive. I've learned so much. And going forward, we definitely want to provide an avenue for increasing the exports of produce coming from out of Jamaica, and therefore contributing a higher percentage to our GDP. We want to thank our acting CEO, Mr. Scarlett, who did a very good job in doing the opening remarks for us. And our team here at Agri-Invest, I also want to thank them as well, because this is the first time we're actually hosting a webinar of this sort, and it went well for the most part, and I'm really happy about that. So everybody, thank you so much, and I do hope that people will enjoy the rest of their day. And going forward, send all your questions in the chat, and we will definitely try to provide the responses as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much. From Agri-Invest and our team, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.